Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Jess with staff. And I believe our staff should be ready here in 5 minutes.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. McNeely. I am ready, and I'm glad that you reached out because I always do a sound check before the meeting, so I can hear you, you can hear me. So I'm ready to go at 4:30. I'll start the meeting.
Absolutely. We'll be ready. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, everyone. Good evening. This is Chair Ontiveros. It is 4:30 p.m., so I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to begin with the meeting rules and procedures. Welcome to the November 9th, 2022 meeting of the Coconino County Planning and Zoning Commission. Cases will be heard in the order they appear on the agenda. Following the staff presentation, the applicant and/or the applicant's representative may address the commission. As an applicant, if you agree with the staff report and have no additional information, please feel free to keep your comments brief. Any relevant comments are welcome. Following the applicant's presentation, I will make a call to the public. If you wish to address this case, please state your name and address. We ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments must be relevant to the case. Please address all comments to the commission. No matter how strongly you may feel about the case, all comments must be polite and courteous. After all interested public have spoken, the public comment portion will be closed. Discussion will then take place amongst commissioners. Decisions of this commission regarding any zone change or preliminary subdivision plat approval are referred to the Board of Supervisors as a recommendation. All other case decisions are binding unless appealed to the Board of Supervisors. If you disagree with the commissioner's decision, you have 15 days to appeal. Please contact staff at the Community Development Office for appeal procedures. Due to the virtual nature of this meeting, I will be doing a roll call vote of the commissioners to ensure accuracy for the record. Please mute your speakers and turn off your camera. And thank you all for joining us this evening and actively participating in our county planning. Mr. McNeely, the item number 1 on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please lead us in that?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will do so. If everyone could stand with me and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second item on the agenda this evening is the election of a commission vice chair. So as we discussed at our last meeting, if there are no changes or thoughts or concerns, let's go ahead and put out a motion and a second, please.
Okay, I'll go forward with that. For vice chair, I would like to make a motion to, I suppose elect is the correct term, Tiana Burton as vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Ruggles and a second by Commissioner Clifford to elect Tiana Burton as vice chair of the Coconino County Planning and Zoning Commission. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles?
Aye.
Commissioner Burton?
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Best?
Aye.
This is Vice Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 31st, 2022. If there are no changes, clarifications, or modifications, let's go ahead and move to a motion and second, please.
I do have a question on that one. Since I was not present for that one and I have to abstain, does that affect the quorum to approve those minutes?
Well, that is a really good question. Can legal weigh in on this?
I mean, we literally have no way to approve it since we don't have a quorum
Yeah,
if I can't participate.
yeah. You know what?
Chair Ontiveros,
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Paul Garnes from the Coconino County Attorney's Office. And I believe the point is well made. We may have to hold off on approving these minutes until perhaps the next meeting when a quorum is present.
Okay, so then am I correct in understanding, should we make a motion to continue this agenda item to the November 30th, 2022 meeting, or should we just let it go?
I believe it would be appropriate to make a motion to continue it to the next meeting, and it can be taken up there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, well, with that, let's go ahead and have a motion and a second to continue the approval of the minutes of August 31st, 2022 to the November 30th, 2022 PNC meeting.
Madam Chair, question, are we going to have another commissioner by then?
You know what? Commissioner Best, as soon, I mean, you and the thought must have hit us at the exact same time, because I thought, you know what? We're going to be in the exact same situation
Yep.
on November 30th. So council, I believe that we are in a situation where we will have to indefinitely continue this item until we have another commissioner appointed. Am I correct with that?
I believe you are, Chair.
Okay. So then, why don't we go ahead and make a motion to that effect, please? A motion in a second.
Madam Chair, I move that we can continue the vote on the minutes indefinitely until we have a quorum available to vote on it.
I'll second.
Okay, okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Best and a second by Vice Chair Burton to indefinitely continue approval of the minutes from the August 31st, 2022 meeting until there is another commissioner appointed, so we have a quorum for this agenda item. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros. I also vote aye. That motion passes unanimously. The first item on the public hearing agenda this evening is case number DRO 22-005.
So, Madam Chair, Kelly Bingham, planner in our office, will be presenting this. Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Again, this is DRO 22005. And this is a case for the Belmont Lux Locker design review. The property owner is Belmont Storage Partners LLC out of Lake Havasu. The applicant is David Ferret of Lux Locker in Austin, Texas. The zoning on this is commercial heavy 10,000 standards. Because this is in Belmont, it's in a planned community zone. The size of this is 5.66 acres. And I want to call attention to that because that's going to be important later on when we discuss landscaping and also the site design. And their request is for a design review for their motor vehicle, boat, and recreational vehicle storage. You can see on this vicinity map that it is just east of the I-40 Interstate Exchange in Belmont. And here's a more zoomed in aerial photo of the site. Take note, there's not very much vegetation on this site, just a couple of sparse trees. The proposed development is RV and boat storage, as I mentioned before. This is going to be 7 buildings. They total 93,000 square feet. All of the units are climate controlled. And they're going to be 14-foot to 18-foot tall storage units. The applicant is requesting administrative adjustments for 2 things, assuming this goes through with the commission tonight. One is a 20% reduction for the setback from 20 feet to 16 feet. And the other is a 3% increase on lot coverage. Here's a photo of the existing site. You can see there is some difference in the height of the land here. You can see there's a little bit of drainage that goes through the property. This occurs in multiple places. You should see more and more pictures. This is from the west side of the site. And here is a rendering. You can see that the colors that they chose are kind of a deep gray and a deep brown to echo the natural landscape. And you can also see their signage here. And here's their site plan. You can see all 7 of the buildings. And you can also see there are some easements that run through here that made the site design a little bit tight, which is why they're requesting the 38% lot coverage. Here are their materials and colors. We looked at that in the rendering just a moment ago. It's going to be mostly brown with some metal, dark gray colors. So the landscaping for the site has been a little bit of an issue here. The zoning ordinance is requiring 64 plant units. And if you do the calculations, that's 192 trees, 512 shrubs, which staff understands is not necessarily possible because the site doesn't have water. So the applicant is intending to request a variance because an administrative adjustment can only reduce this to 51 plant units. The lighting is shown as amber lighting, and it is going to need to meet the zoning ordinance requirements for Zone 2. And here's the signage in more detail. You can see it's kind of a gold with white and black. There's more detail about this in your staff report, but staff noted that because it's on this kind of gray facade, it doesn't seem to stand out so much that it wouldn't meet the Belmont DRO, but we'll let the commission decide what they think. But staff believes this is in compliance with the design review overlay for Belmont. The materials are stucco and metal and in muted earth tone colors. The white colors that you saw on the doors before is limited just to the interior, so that's not going to be outward facing. The lighting is going to need to conform fully to the ordinance. It's going to be fully shielded Zone 2 lighting. And the applicant has shown variation in the heights and colors and material to visually reduce the bulk of the site. Here are the conditions. I can come back to this in a moment if you would like. But staff recommends approval of DRO 22005 with the conditions in the staff report. And are there any questions?
Commissioner Bass, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm I'm looking at the landscaping plan. It looks like the landscaping, the interior landscaping is extensive and would be invisible to people outside of the development. Is that correct?
I understand that there is some that runs through the center of the site in the easement, just because there is so much required. So you'll be seeing the bulk of the landscaping proposed in that easement. But my understanding is that they also have a little bit around the edges of the walls. But they're also pretty limited with space there because they're almost right up to the ADOT right-of-way. So I believe that they might have a little bit of room and they have shown some landscaping there. But because of the number of plant units, they really had to focus on that easement in the middle.
Well, that I understand that we're dealing with prescriptions here, but I think to make sense of it, since the public is not going to see the interior landscaping, I don't know that it really makes any difference. The public is going to see the landscaping on the 66 side and the highway side. And the walls are quite tall and a little stark. The highway side, which is what people see coming into Flagstaff, is also on the north side, which is a tough environment. Basically, those plants would get probably zero sun because they're so close to a tall north-facing wall. So I think it's quite a challenge, and I don't have all the answers, but I got questions. We have done projects where they took water off the roof. This much plant material without a source of water is going to be quite a headache. It's going to require a lot of trucking of water just to keep these plants alive. And the ones that are right up against the north facing wall, getting those to grow in the shade, never seeing sun, that's a tough one. So I don't have I don't have a lot of answers. I wish we had a plant person like we have a wildlife person, a planner who could deal with plants. But I don't know what plants you would use, and I don't know how you would keep them alive in this case. So I guess my one definite suggestion is that the applicant think about harvesting water off the roofs, because we do have precedents for that. I couldn't cite you exactly when and where, but we've done that before. And the second question is, I would be very flexible with landscaping. I don't think that the landscaping that the public can never see makes much difference. But I sure would like to see some nice landscaping along 66 and the highway that will actually grow and break up those walls. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Best. Right now, I'm going to piggyback on that statement, because I think Commissioner Best is applying common sense here to this situation. I had some of the same concerns. And what I'm wondering is if hardscape could be substituted for any of the plants, if that would be acceptable. Do you know, Ms. Bingham?
Yes, Chair Ontiveros, I can speak to that. I can say that the zoning ordinance is very specific in the landscaping section. What it requires is hardscape like rocks, in addition to 3 trees and 8 shrubs. All that together makes 1 plant unit. So if we were to require just hardscape, I don't think that would suffice for the zoning ordinance standards.
Okay. I guess what I was thinking, let me give like an actual example. So I understand what you're talking about X amount of trees, X amount of shrubs. More specific on the question was, could, for example, this is just hypothetical, could a large boulder be used to substitute for 1 tree? Is that possible?
My understanding of the zoning ordinance is that there are not allowances for that. If there were, staff would have highly recommended that to the applicant. Perhaps Mr. McNeely or Mr. Short would have other suggestions, but the zoning ordinance is unfortunately very clear about it being vegetation, a tree or a shrub. There can be allowances for existing vegetation that can waive plant units. And we can also allow cacti in certain areas. But unfortunately, I'm not aware of anything else that would be allowed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ruggles?
Yes. The applicant's going to request a variance. Could this not be an additional subject of the variance they request?
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Could you clarify what you mean? What would be an additional?
Okay. The applicant is already addressed going for a variance for other aspects of this. So could this be addressed, the question of landscaping and using hardscape as opposed to plants and trees, could that also be addressed as a variance?
Thank you for clarifying, Commissioner Ruggles. I think that's something that the Board of Adjustments could talk about. It might be something that they would be able to condition. I'm not sure that that's been done before. Maybe Mr. Shorts would know some precedents. But they need to get the variance because the Planning and Zoning Commission is not able to reduce the landscaping requirement. So that is their only way to reduce that landscaping.
That that is my understanding. It has been in the past, and I know prior to the rewrite of the zoning ordinance, we have had cases where we have gone with hardscape. One that I remember very well was in Tuba City, and there was nothing surrounding the location except sand. And they did not have water on the site. It was a propane distributor. So that we have done this before when we could do that under the provisions of the zoning ordinance, but that's changed. That's why I asked about the use of a variance to accomplish this. In a case like this where there is no water, Sot Best had raised some very good considerations about what are you going to do with this? And Chair Ontiveros' suggestion for hardscape and some rather large rocks, boulders to accomplish that. I believe a thorough review would indicate that you could do that with a variance.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. I'm making notes of this so that we can include it in the staff report for the variance, should they move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Clifford?
I have a question on the water retention that runs through here, through the ditch area there. Is that going to be kept in place, or what are they going to do with that? Because it's kind of hard. They don't have that on this drawing. It looks like they're real close to 66 where that runs. Have they addressed that water issue?
Thank you for that question. Let me go back to the site plan so that we can all look at it together. But to address your question while I scroll back, because this is just a design review, my understanding is that they'll need to get all the appropriate engineering permits. It's not something that we can necessarily look at as part of the design review, but they will be required to work with our engineering to make sure that any water going through the site is appropriately rerouted.
Okay, because if we approve a design review for this and that comes up that they cannot have as much space as they are asking for, is that automatically reduced? It's just a question I'm throwing out there.
That is an excellent question. I believe, and Mr. McNeely or Mr. Short can correct me if I'm wrong, but because we are just looking at the design, so long as the design, the colors, materials doesn't substantially change, they would be able to make a couple of small adjustments should they need to for their engineering permits.
Correct. So, Madam Chair, this is Jess McNeely with staff, and thank you, Kelly. You hit that nail on the head. Absolutely, this is DRO only reviewing this project for compliance with the design review overlay from the Belmont area plan. So, grading and drainage permit requirements are required regardless for this project to complete permitting and get built. It will have a grading and drainage permit from our engineering division, and the basic principles of drainage in the county's manuals have to be complied with, where stormwater runoff from this site cannot leave the site at any greater volume or amount post development than pre-development. So certainly, and I do see retention pond on their site plan drawings identified. So they have conceptually thought about stormwater, and they will have to have those engineered drawings go through our permitting process to actually get permitted for their grading and drainage. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Clifford?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Commissioner Best, your hand is still raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the landscaping design, And I would just ask the question, is there any way to move things a bit south? And there may not be, so that there's a little more room on the north side to accommodate either boulders or landscaping. Right now, it seems pretty narrow. There's quite a bit more room on the south side, but there may be a setback there that is larger than the one against the ADOT right away. And there may be a detention pond there that I'm not looking at on the landscaping plan. So I would just ask that question. So if you could shift things south, you might get make it easier for landscaping on the other side.
Thank you, Commissioner Best. I would not be able to address the question about shifting things south. Although if I'm understanding the site plan correctly, they're showing the property boundary as the dashed line here, although the applicant can address that far better than I can. To your question on the retention pond, you can see it's actually where the easement is. There's an easement for power lines, and it appears that they're going to be using that for retention as well. It's very small on the site plan, so I know it's difficult to see.
Okay, yeah, I do see what you're pointing out. Thank you. Yeah, if that is if the dotted line is the property line, then that answers that question. Thanks.
Okay, excuse me, Ms. Bingham, I'm not seeing any other questions from the commissioners at this time. So I would like to ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the commission. And before you do, I would like to ask if you have received the staff report and if you've read the conditions and if you agree with them. So with that, please state your name and address for the record and go ahead and address the commission.
This is David Ferretti. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
My name is, I'm with Lux Locker. We have reviewed the
Mr. Ferretti, let me interrupt here real quick. Could you please state your address for the record, please?
Oh. And
then go ahead.
Sure. It's 7324 Brecourt Manor Way, Austin, Texas, 78739. We have reviewed that, and I thank you for addressing the landscape question. That's really the biggest one on our list that we would have liked to talk about. There is no water provided in there. And to answer some of the questions that you guys were posing, we can't move it further any south. You see where our property line is. And just below, between us and the Highway 66 is the path of travel for water as well too. That there's already existing drainage easement in that area, so we can't go any further south. And you are correct, between building E and D, that is an easement, and we have a good portion of our detention in that area there. So other than that, the report was, I would like to get to the bottom of, what's our final landscape. I did hear several council men and women talk about the variance. And we're something we'd be happy to work with, whether it's rocks or xeriscape or reduction in plants. We're happy to work with the design team and the city on that to come to a successful conclusion for both of us. We just would like that, if that can be done. And I don't know how the scheduling of the council works, or the approvals after site plan. That way we can still move forward with, doesn't stop us from submitting our permits and going through that process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ferretti. This is Chair Ontiveros. I just want to point out that this commission cannot reduce the requirement. So that's going to be something that you're going to pick up at your variance hearing, okay? But Ms. Bingham did indicate that she was taking very good notes of our comments regarding our hardscape suggestions, etc. And so she's going to include those, the same ones you just heard, into her report to prepare for the variance hearing. Now, did you read, do you agree with the conditions that are in the staff report? There are 6 of them.
I'll have to go through. I know I reviewed them when we first came out. And are they also in this this applicant packet here? Yes. There's the, at the end there.
Yeah,
I don't-
do you see them?
Yeah, I have it
Oh.
open on my screen as well too.
Okay. And do you have any concerns with anything other than what we've talked about regarding landscaping?
No, I do
Okay.
not take issue with those.
Okay, and let me ask, do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant this evening? Commissioner Best, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, my question is about water and keeping the landscaping alive. I'm assuming that we have a mechanism in the county to make sure that the landscaping does stay alive. And maybe I'll be asking staff that question a little later. But you've got a lot of landscaping here. How are you going to keep it alive in a dry environment without water on the property? And it's kind of up to you how you do this, but I'm just pointing out the challenge.
Sure, we are going to also have restrooms on this site, and we're going to be having a tank, a small tank on site. So we would have to, at least during the establishment period of the landscaping, would be a heavier burden on the water, but we'd be bringing in water to this site. That's our only option here.
Thank you, Mr. Ferretti. Do the Commissioner Best, I see, oh, there you go. Okay, I do not see any other commissioners' hands raised or unmuted. So I'm going to ask at this time if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. If so, please unmute or raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, I am not seeing any, so I'm going to close it to the public comment section and open it at commission level.
Excuse me, Tammy.
Yes. Oh, Jeff Hatch.
Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architecture. Our address is 200 West 36th Street, Boise, Idaho 83714. Project architect for this project. Very excited to be doing work in Coconino County. It is a little bit of a challenging site, especially for the landscaping. We did work with our landscape architect and our civil engineer to create some retention grading that will shed water off of the buildings, and as it is funneled to our retention basins, it would be going through landscape areas to, in theory, help with kind of a natural watering of those plants as best we can. So I know there was a fair amount of coordination between the landscape architect and the civil engineer to try to create at least a native system, as well as what Mr. Ferretti had spoke to. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's a smart idea. So thank you. Now I am going to close it to the public, and I'm going to open it at commission discussion. Commissioner Ruggles, would you please start us this evening?
Okay. First thing would be very simply to address my comments or my questions to staff at the beginning about the variance. If the applicant decides to use more or just simply add hardscape, I think that would not change anything in terms of what they would do in going to the Board of Adjustment to change the requirements in the ordinance for landscaping. So that being said, I think otherwise, I can certainly make the findings here for everything else in the conditions that are written. The design, I think, will fit with the area very well. And I think the architect has done an excellent job in looking at the configuration of the exterior of this. It definitely will break it up. It will help the visual perception of the size. The colors, I think, will blend in rather well. And I know staff in the analysis brought up the issue of the sign. Well, considering the size of the development and the size of the sign, I don't see a problem with that in terms of the size of the sign. It meets the requirements of the ordinance. The other thing is the colors. I think that it is appropriate that we allow the colors that go with the corporate logo or the company logo. And to say otherwise, I think would, in my mind, be regulating content to a certain extent. I don't want to do that. So otherwise, I think that we've got a good site plan, good design, and I can make the findings for approval of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Vice Chair Burton.
Yeah, I think it looks good and I think it's an appropriate location. I don't have a problem with anything I've seen. I can make the findings.
Okay, Commissioner Clifford.
It is a good location for this and I can make the findings. It's going to be a very good addition for out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
I also can make the findings, and I think it's quite an attractive looking building for what it is. So I think that's good.
Thank you, and Commissioner Best.
I can generally make the findings. I would comment to the applicant and staff in this variance process. To the applicant, you've got a challenge with the landscaping. We're in a 1,200-year drought. Definitely try to use somebody local to design this for you. I have a fair amount of experience trying to get native plants to grow, and it's hard. And they do require water. You know, eventually, maybe not, but we've got plants, native plants dying here because we're in this drought. So I would take the water issue seriously. Other than that, looks like a good design and I can make the findings. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chair Ontiveros, and yeah, this project is the right project, right place, right look. So I can definitely make the findings. With that, let's go ahead and move to a motion in a second, please.
Okay,
I'll move. Go ahead, John.
Oh, okay, thank you. I will move for a approval of DRO 22-005 with conditions as written by staff.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Ruggles, a second by Vice Chair Burton for approval of DRO 22-005. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles.
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton.
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is case number ZC 22-011.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jess with Community Development staff. Zone change ZC 22-011 is being managed by Zach Shorts, and I see he already has a screen up. So go ahead, Zach. Thank you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this is Zach Schwartz with Planning and Zoning staff. And this case is ZC 22-011, the under canvas change in zoning regulations. The property owner is Under Canvas LLC, and the applicant is Jamie Schmidt of Under Canvas LLC. Property is located at 979 Air Park Lane in Valley. It's adjacent to the Valley Airport on the west. And this request is to modify the custom planned community zone standards for a master plan that was for glamping campgrounds to include workforce housing as an amendment. And the parcel size of the subject property is 161 acres. Here's a vicinity map. So this is Highway 64, this is Highway 180, and this, of course, is the Valley Airport. The subject property is highlighted in green, and just to the south of it is a manufactured home park, and to the west is vacant property in the general zone. Here is a zoomed in aerial photo. So the property gets access off of Highway 64 down and around the airport and past the manufactured home. You can see on this aerial, this is the area where the existing glamping campground is, and the proposed employee housing would be generally in this area here. Wanted to first give you some background on the case. So in 1993, there was a zone change for 800 acres of the Valley Airport and the surrounding properties from the general zone to the planned community zone. And this included a master plan for airport runways, hangars, a manufactured home park, and a museum. At the time, the subject property was zoned to planned community, but to be held to another zone in our ordinance. It's called the RS 36,000 zone, which is a single family residential zone with a 36,000 square foot minimum parcel size. And so the majority of the master plan from this zone change in 1993 was developed by the early 2000s. The subject property was not. In 2018, Under Canvas became the owner of the property, and they were approved for a zone change for custom standards in the planned community zone for a glamping campground master plan rather than the RS 36,000 zone standards. And the master plan included 91 glamping tent sites and associated facilities. So those have all been constructed, and the conditions of the 2018 zone change have all been met. I just wanted to show you some pictures of the existing developments. So this up top is the check-in building lobby tent. And these are just examples of the different tents that they rent out to guests of the campground. For details on this request, it's a request for a master plan amendment, and specifically for the addition of 7 5-bedroom manufactured homes and associated infrastructure. 1 or 2 employees would occupy each bedroom, and there's an elevation of a pretty standard manufactured home on this slide, and as well as your packet. That's what the applicant wishes to add to the master plan. Here's the site plan. So I had to sort of tilt it on its side. The left side of your screen is north. And so the access coming up to the existing campground is here off of Air Park Lane. This amendment to the master plan for the employee housing would use a different driveway, and there would be the 7 manufactured homes here adjacent to where the manufactured home park exists on the neighboring property. And here's just an inset from the site plan showing here are the 7 units. There's ample parking, and there's also areas reserved for a separate wastewater from the rest of the development shown here. Here's a photo from the staff reports that I took from the area of the proposed employee housing looking east towards the airport. These piles that you see of dirt are areas where there was excavation to do site evaluations for a septic system. As far as citizen participation, neighbors within 2,000 feet of the subject property were notified of the project and invited to a neighborhood meeting for comments. 2 employees of the airport attended, and 1 commented that there should be fencing between the employee housing and the runways for the airport. So there is some existing fencing, but staff wasn't able to look at the entirety of the property line between the 2 uses. So staff is recommending a full inspection of the fencing between the airport and the subject property. And then they would have a year from approval to make improvements from that inspection that would be required. Since the 2018 approval for the Under Canvas zone change, the zoning ordinance was amended for expanded allowances for campgrounds, and there were expanded requirements along with that. And from 2020 to today, there have been several campgrounds that have requested conditional use permits, and the commission has over time added additional best practice and mitigation conditions to campgrounds, and it's become relatively standardized, and all new campgrounds would have certain conditions related to wildlife friendly fencing, limits on OHV use and rental, ecology education material, firewise signage, etc. And so staff has recommended, and the applicant has agreed to new conditions for the entire property based on the lessons learned since the 2018 approval of the original master plan. And you'll see these conditions primarily number 2 through number 10 of staff's recommendations. The applicable long-range plans for the area are the Coconino County Comprehensive Plan that supports tourism focused on conservation and supports employee housing in and around gateway communities. The Valley Area Plan is also applicable to the area, and it supports educational related tourist facilities that are consistent with natural aspects of the area. It also supports a mix of housing types and generally supports employee housing. So the request is consistent with those applicable long-range plans. Here on the screen are the 3 findings of facts that the commission must make in order to forward a recommendation of approval of a zone change to the Board of Supervisors. Staff is able to make those 3 findings of fact. I've detailed in the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that if the commission has any. But for now, if the commission can make the findings of fact, staff recommends that the commission forward the recommendation of approval for case ZC 22011 to the Board of Supervisors with the proposed conditions. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Commissioner Best?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, just some questions here. Overall, it looks like a pretty good project. One question is this really just for employee housing? This is 7 motorhomes, 5 bedrooms each. That's 35 bedrooms. That's a lot of employees. One on page 49, it says there are going to be 19 parking spaces. On page 45, it says there are going to be 60 parking spaces. So there's just a little confusion in my mind what we're really doing here. It's next to the airport. If some of these were not for employees and were rented out, I think that would be fine, but I think we should definitely be explicit about what we're actually doing here. Are we really providing 35 staff bedrooms and 60 parking spaces for staff for this facility?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Best, I think the applicant can speak to this, but certainly the way that the applicant describes the use in the narrative is for employee housing. Staff has conditioned this zone change that the use be done in accordance with the narrative and site plan for the case. I think that they might be able to speak to how many people it takes to run this camp, and it might show a need for that. So does that answer your question?
Sure, we can talk to the applicant. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any, let's see. Are there any other questions by the commissioners? Not seeing any, I'm going to ask if the applicant would address the commission. Please state your name and address for the record. And I would also like to ask if you have received and read the staff report and agree with the conditions. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Jamie Schmidt. I'm with Under Canvas. We're at 1172 Happy Lane, Bozeman, Montana. And yes, I have read the staff report and I do agree with the conditions. Commissioner, Betts, right? We are not in the business of renting out any anything outside of our, we actually don't even rent them out at all because we provide housing for our staff. We have included 7 mobile homes in the event that we end up needing to staff up, but we only really see 5 going in the next 3 years. We have a staff of 60 people at the camp currently. This is our largest camp at Under Canvas. So we definitely need all those spaces, and some of the units may end up being used for managers who get their own rooms and, you know, have a little more space than just regular staff. So I can assure you that this is just employee housing. And honestly, we wouldn't be doing this if we could find long-term rentals in the area, but as you know, they're just not available. Does that answer your question?
That answers my question, and I think it's really great that you're doing that. It's absolutely a need. I just wanted to make sure that you and we are clear about what you're doing.
Yeah, no,
And
that
I
makes
would not object to you renting these out as long as we put that into what's going on here.
No,
There's a great need in the area.
yeah, we wouldn't even ever entertain that, honestly. But sorry, I would like to apologize for the number of parking spaces kind of changing throughout the plan. I just missed some typos along the way and realized we needed many more spaces than I had in there originally. So 60 spaces is what the number is.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt, for that clarification. And I apologize if you already answered this question, but you have received the staff report and you do agree with the conditions?
I have received the staff report and I do agree with the conditions.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant by the commissioners at this time? Okay, I am not seeing any. I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. If so, please raise your hand or unmute, and I will call on you. And I am not seeing any, so I'm going to close it to the public, and I'm going to open it at commission level. Commissioner Ruggles?
Hey, I can definitely make the findings for forwarding a recommendation for approval to the Board of Supervisors. I think this is pretty well thought out. It's a definite need. And one time in my life, I worked for a company where the company provided housing for us, and I understand how good a deal this is for the employees that will be working there, because I know what isn't available in the Valley area. So this is, I think, a very good thing to add. So that being said, I can make findings for forwarding this to the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. Vice Chair Burton?
Yeah, I can absolutely make the findings. Given the remoteness of the area, I can definitely see the need for employee housing. And I think it's a great idea to add that on. And I am not at all surprised that they have 60 people on staff for an operation that size. So obviously business is going good for them. So I can make the findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Clifford?
Yeah, it's a good thing for the employees and the company to keep staff. That way they're not rotating through staff because they're finding something else somewhere in a different area that does have housing. So I can make the findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
I can make the findings as well, and it seems like a good answer to the question of employee housing.
Thank you. Commissioner Best?
I'm very enthusiastic about this. Great to see the housing going in. I would add one condition. It's just one of the standard conditions, which I don't think is covered in either list of conditions. It would be condition number 16. The applicant shall develop a plan to minimize topsoil and native plant disturbance during construction and operation of the facility. But given that, I think it's a good project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Best. This is Vice Chair Ontiveros, and I concur with my fellow commissioners' comments this evening. And because we have applied the suggested additional requirement or condition when we do development, I personally do not have a problem adding that condition number 16. So let's go ahead and make a motion in a second, please.
I'll make a motion to forward the recommendation of approval for ZC-22-011 to the Board of Supervisors with the conditions in the report, including a new number 16 that Commissioner Best just said.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Williams and a second by Commissioner Clifford to recommend approval to the Board of Supervisors for ZC 22-011 with the addition of number 16, condition number 16 as stated by Commissioner Best. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Best,
Aye.
and this is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is case number CUP 22094 and DRO 22007.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is Jess McNeely with Community Development Staff, and Bob Short is managing this case. Thanks for getting your screen up, Bob. You probably want to maximize the PowerPoint there, but go ahead, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it maximized now? I'm showing it being.
No, you need to swap the displays around, Bob, that we're seeing the.
Okay, thanks. Maybe
All you need to do is go up to display settings at the top there and just tell it to swap displays within the PowerPoint.
Try that one more time.
Looks good.
That looks good. All right. I think my other side is invisible at this point. I guess I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This is the Allguard self-storage expansion at CUP 2294 and DRO 2207. And in this case, the property owner is Carson Family Trust, Ltd. of Flagstaff. The applicant is Kent Hudson Pillar of Mogollon Engineering of Flagstaff. The zoning CG 10,000 and the size of the property is 6.42 acres. And this request is a conditional use permit to expand an existing self-storage business and a design review overlay DRO for commercial development. And that includes the site design, the landscaping, the building design, materials and colors. In this case, new lighting and signage are not proposed. This is a vicinity map showing the subject property. It is within the Burris Lane Activity Center in Doney Park on Highway 89. And this is an aerial photo showing the subject property. You can see the existing. This is a caretaker's quarters and office. These are existing self-storage units, including one along, I believe, thin one along the side over here. And at this point, right at this time, they have vehicle storage, I think mostly RVs. This is some background information on this case. It was originally, the self-storage was originally approved in 1993. It included the caretaker's quarters and a motor vehicle, boat, and RV storage yard. In 2009, there was a modification of this conditional use permit, And that was to allow River Runners vehicles to be stored seasonally on the site. And in 2019, as you know, we had a major update to the zoning ordinance, and that changed how some of these uses were looked at. And for one thing, the motor vehicle, boat, and RV storage yards, they are not really distinguished between the River Runners. I'm sure this is part of that ordinance update, but I really couldn't see the difference in those. So as a permitted use in this CG 10,000 zone, I didn't see any reason to address those particular items. They seem the same as any other vehicles. So that is now permitted by right. And there is also an allowance in the zoning ordinance now for mixed use in an activity center. So that is, for example, residential and commercial use. In this case, we have a caretaker's quarters, which is residential, and we have a commercial use. So that is considered to be mixed use. So the caretaker's quarters also doesn't require a conditional use. So to reiterate, neither the motor vehicle, boat, and RV storage yard requires a conditional use, or the mixed use, which is the caretaker's quarters. The only thing requiring the CUP is the self-storage units. This is the site plan showing the subject property. Again, you can see the existing self-storage units in this area, and they're requesting to put in additional self-storage units. You can see these here, and then there's some smaller ones right here along this. They're kind of changing the layout of the motor vehicle, RV, and boat storage area. You can see some parking areas here, and they're also proposing a building right here, or kind of a covered parking for the RVs, open covered parking. This is the existing landscaping on the site. They're retaining most of the landscaping. Obviously, some has to be removed because they're putting in the buildings in this area. So this is how it looks now. They have a lot of existing native mature landscaping, which helps out a lot whenever you're doing these kinds of developments, because our zoning ordinance now supports that. If you have a large mature native tree, then that takes the place of a lot of new trees that you would have to put in. So this is the existing landscaping, and this is the proposed new landscaping. You can see some of it's been taken out, but there's also some additional landscaping added. And this is a photo showing that landscaping and also the office. So here, this is the office with the unit on top, the caretaker's quarters. And you can see this large oak grove and some aspen trees and some ponderosas, many different trees on this site. So just keep in mind that each of these oak trees is measured diameter, breast height, and they can replace several new landscape trees. So it's always important for developers to retain the existing trees on the site. This is the existing self-storage. You can see the split face block, the green roof, and the tan colored doors on it. And again, you can see a lot of existing mature landscaping on this site. And this is an existing fence that provides screening. This was approved in a previous DRO or CUP case. Yeah. And this is the existing sign on the property. And these are elevations of the buildings. As you can see, they look very much like the original buildings, existing buildings on the site. And this is a rendering of a covered parking. They're proposing to use the same type of green on the roof and then the same type of tan on these columns. And this is an example of the materials and colors. Obviously, the green colored metal roof and roof trim, the exterior split faced CMU grouted block in a natural gray color. And then you have the doors, which are in a desert tan color. And these are the findings of fact for conditional use permit. I've addressed each of those in the staff report. Commission has any questions, we can discuss those. And in terms of a design review overlay, the commission must determine that the development is consistent with the Donny Park, Timberland, Fernwood Area Plan design guidelines. And with that, staff recommends approval of DRO 22007 and CUP 094 with the recommended conditions. And with that, I'll take any questions from the commission.
Okay, Mr. Short, I am not seeing any commissioners with questions. So I'm going to ask if the applicant or the applicant's representative would like to address the commission this evening. And if so, I would like to ask if you have received the staff report, read it, and agree with the conditions. Mr. Short, do you see the applicant? I do. I see Allguard Storage. There you go. Would you like to address the commission? Please state your name and address for the record.
Mike Tullis. I'm here with my wife, Kelly Carson, and our fellow owner, my brother-in-law, James Brooks. We have read the packet, are familiar with it. We're also here with Rob Begley from.
You know what? Let me stop you right there. Can you please state your address for the record as well, please?
Sure. It's 7831 North Highway 89. Flagstaff 86004.
Okay, and please go ahead. Thank you.
We are in support of the packet. We've read the packet and are familiar with the conditions and agree with the conditions.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to see, is there anyone, do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant at this time? And not seeing any, I'm going to ask if there is anyone in the public that wishes to address the commission on this case this evening. And not seeing any, I'm going to go ahead and close it to the public and open it to commission discussion. Commissioner Ruggles.
Okay, I definitely can make findings for approval. And just one comment, I'm sure that given the number of times that Commissioner Clifford and I both drive past here, we are more than familiar with what things look like in terms of the existing landscaping. And the number of times that I have been by, I see the sign that says Allguard, and you know what runs through my mind? Gee, where is the storage facility? That's how effective landscaping is. So that being said, I am 100% behind approval of this DRO as it is put together.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chair Burton.
Yeah, I can make the findings. I don't see a problem with this, and I'll, second Commissioner Ruggles. I don't drive by it nearly as often as he does, but yes, it is definitely well landscaped. So I can make the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Clifford.
Yeah, it's an everyday drive-bys 2, 4, 6, 8 times a day, depending. And I can make the findings. It's a great location, and it's they keep it up very well, and I can make the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
I can make the findings, and it looks like a great project.
Thank you, Commissioner Best.
I can make the findings. I really like seeing that green space left that way. Looks like a good asset for the community. I can enthusiastically make the findings.
Okay, thank you. This is Chair Ontiveros. I very much concur with my fellow commissioners' comments, especially Commissioners Ruggles and Clifford, because they're there. They see it. They know what's going on. And with that, I can certainly make the findings for both the CUP and the DRO. So let's go ahead and move to a motion and a second, please.
I would,
We're going to need to do
start.
2 separate motions, one for the DRO and one for the CUP and one for the DRO.
thank you, Chair Ontiveros. I was just going to mention exactly the same thing.
Okay.
So I'll start with a motion to approve CUP 22-094 with conditions as written.
I'll second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Ruggles, a second by Commissioner Williams to approve CUP 22-094 with conditions contained in the staff report. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford,
Aye.
Vice Chair Williams. Commissioner Williams.
Boy,
I
I was
can't read my own
promoted.
writing tonight.
That was fast.
Yeah,
Um,
I know.
I would say aye.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Best.
Aye.
And this is Chair Ontiveros. I also vote aye. CUP 22-094. That motion passes unanimously. Let's go ahead and move to the motion for the DRO, please.
Okay.
I'll move to approve DRO 22-007 as written with conditions.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Williams and a second by Commissioner Ruggles to approve DRO 22-007. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Best,
Aye.
and this is Chair Ontiveros. The motion passes unanimously. The next item on tonight's hearing agenda is case number CUP 22-049.
Thank you,
Thank you, Madam.
Commission, and thank you, Mr. Short. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is Jess McNeely with Community Development Staff. CUP 2249 is being managed by Zach Schwartz. Thank you for getting your screen up, Zach, and go ahead and get the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and Mr. McNeely. This is case CUP 22049, the Fireside Campground Conditional Use Permit request. The property owner is Fireside Zion LLC. The applicant is Zach Stoltenberg, and the property is located at 10054 North State Route 64 in the Red Lake area. This request is for a conditional use permit for an 18-unit campground on a 10.8 acre parcel in the general zone. Here's a vicinity map. So Highway 64 runs up north through the Red Lake area. And this sort of string is the right-of-way for the Grand Canyon Railway. The subject property is actually bisected by it with about 6 acres on the eastern half and 4 acres on the western half. It's surrounded by other properties in the general zone, including to the south where you see the blue. That's state trust land, which according to the official zoning map is also zoned general for whenever that changes hands. Here is an aerial of the subject property. So you can see the driveway on the northeastern portion of the property from Highway 64. There's actually an access easement on this portion of the property to allow access to the property to the north. And the property is heavily treed with pinyon juniper, and it has a slope down from the highway to the middle of the property. For some details on the request, it's for an 18-unit campground with 17 dome tents and 1 cabin, as it's defined in the zoning ordinance, which is just a dwelling that's located in the requested check-in building. The check-in building would also include an office and an area of 150 square feet for limited sales of goods, prepackaged food and drink to guests only. There would be 2 modular shower houses, a pool, and eventually up to 8 electrical vehicle charging stations in the parking areas. Operation would be for 6 months per year, and there would be an on-site campground manager at all times. Here's the site plan of the proposed project. So here again is the entrance from Highway 64. This rectangle here is an access easement to the property to the north. And so the proposed check-in building is located 30 feet as is required for a setback in the general zone from an easement to the check-in building. And there is parking along the north side around the check-in building and around the east side. 2 shower or bathhouses are here and here. They would be modular, and scattered throughout the property would be the dome tents. In the middle is where the applicant proposes a pool, and sort of south of that is where the applicant would have a storage building. And the electrical vehicle charging stations, 4 are shown on the site plan near the check-in building, and 4 are shown in the parking area adjacent to Highway 64. Up top are elevations of the proposed check-in building. So it would be a shipping container, modular design. Colors would be according to the palette of earth tone colors that was submitted in the applicant's narrative. That's a part of your packet. And the floor plan on the lower part of this slide here shows an office, check-in building, a restroom for guests of the campground, and it shows the dwelling unit here. Wanted to give some background about compliance issues on the subject property. So in July of 2021, code compliance staff opened a case against the applicant for operation of a campground without a conditional use permit being approved. At the same time, the Environmental Quality Division issued a violation for surface effluent drainage from an unpermitted wastewater system that's associated with an existing restroom facility on the subject property. In October and November of 2021, the applicants attended a pre-application meeting to set up their submittals for the required conditional use permit, and Code Compliance Division staff noted that operation had appeared to have ceased. From April 2022 through July 2022, the applicant submitted for the required conditional use permit, and staff and the applicant went back and forth a number of times with different iterations of the plans until the plans were adequate enough to go forward for hearing. The applicant and staff agreed that the plans were set for the August 2022 hearing, but during the writing of the staff report for that hearing, staff was calling the High Country Fire Rescue Department for an unrelated issue, and was told that the applicant owed back payments for fire service in June 2022, which was during a fire ban. And staff at that point recommended continuance until the payment was made, because the fire chief was stating to staff that they would not be able to provide service for the applicants until that was done. For the September and October 2022 hearings, these were canceled due to a lack of quorum of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and staff was told that the applicant was working with the fire department and assumed that payments for the service in June had been made at that point. During the writing of the staff report for tonight's makeup hearing for the October hearing, staff was told that the payment was in the mail. And I do have an update on that, that the applicant last week, when staff reports were released, went in person to the fire department and paid the back payments on the service from June. I wanted to share with you some pictures of the compliance issues that exist on the property. These were also in your staff report. So there were RVs that were being occupied intermittently on the property. This is one of 2 A-frame buildings that were built without permits by the applicant. There were a number of dome tents and associated decks. that were built without permits or without the conditional use permit for the campground. This slide, all of these pictures are related to an existing bathhouse. And you can see in the upper right-hand side that the applicants, this is the wastewater system associated with the bathroom facilities that wasn't permitted, where the Environmental Quality Division had written a violation for surface drainage of wastewater. There was also unapproved electric inside this bathhouse. And I have a photo of one of the toilets. There are 2 toilets in the structure and also a shower. Here's a photo of the other A-frame that was built without any permits. There's also a tent and some string lighting that was on the property. And in the bottom left-hand corner, there were some unapproved utility lines that were held down by propane tanks. On the right-hand side is one of a few fire pits that staff had found on the property, and at least 1, maybe 2 staff site visits. As far as citizen participation, neighbors within 1,000 feet of the subject property were notified of the project and invited to a neighborhood meeting to comment on it. The applicant didn't note the attendance of any neighbors or any concerns from their meeting. Staff did receive a complaint letter from the neighbor to the north, and this neighbor has had, I believe it was in July, possibly August, they were approved for a campground conditional use permit. I don't believe it's in operation yet, but they did note some concerns, including fire safety and possible spread of fire to their property, general code compliance issues, issues with the proposed density and the proposed sales and electrical vehicle chargers. And staff has put a copy of this complaint letter in the commission's packet. The Planning and Zoning Commission must make all 4 findings of fact to approve a conditional use permit, and staff at this time is not able to make findings 2 and 3, 2 being that the proposed location of the conditional use and conditions under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. And 3, that the proposed conditional use will comply with each of the applicable provisions of this ordinance except for approved variances. Due to the amount and severity of compliance issues, including several health and safety issues, staff is not able to make those 2 findings, and thus staff, in lieu of denial, it recommends a continuance of 120 days for the applicants to address some of the compliance issues, including removing unapproved improvements and fire pits from the property, obtaining building permits, working with the High Country Fire and Rescue Departments to obtain full proof of service, and a complete Firewise and emergency plan. And staff's report has additional detail of exactly what staff would like to see in order to be able to recommend approval of the case. And so until the time where they meet all of those items, staff would recommend further continuances of these items. But at this point, I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Mr. Schwartz, this is Chair Ontiveros. And what I would like to know is if the applicant has received your staff report and if they agree to a continuance tonight. Do you know that?
I do, Madam Chair. So the staff report was sent to the applicant Monday last week. And in some correspondence between each other, my understanding is the applicant is not accepting, does not agree with staff's recommendation. And I think what the applicant had said in correspondence was that they think they can meet compliance in a shorter time period, but I guess I would leave that to the applicant when it's time to explain to you all.
Okay, and did you advise the applicant that if they do not get a continuance and it comes before this commission this evening, and we do deny it, that they cannot come back and reapply for a period of 1 year? Are they aware of that information?
Madam Chair, I'm glad that you said that because I don't think that I had relayed that to the applicant, or maybe I did months ago. I believe, thinking back, there might have been a point months ago where the applicant wanted to go forward with the hearing, but staff was, based on the proposed site plan at the time, staff didn't believe that a recommendation for approval could be made. But in any case, I'm glad that you're mentioning that now because it's a very good point for the applicant to hear.
Okay. Commissioner Best, I do want to state that I see your hand raised, and I definitely will be getting with you. But at this point, I would like to ask the applicant if he agrees with a continuance, or if he would like this commission to move forward with his application tonight, with the understanding that if it is denied, they cannot come back for a 1 year time period. So would the applicant please state your name and address for the record and answer that question for me?
This is Zach Stoltenberg. I'm the project architect working for the applicant. Our address is 211 Delaware, Kansas City, Missouri. I believe that we are willing to do the continuance. The concern from the client was the 120-day time period. This site has ceased operation. It's been closed for a year now. And there's on the list of things that were requested to get this into compliance, many of these items have already been addressed. And until we got the staff report, we weren't aware that any of these were items that had to be addressed prior to the approval. And so part of that remediation work has already been done. I know there's a moving company scheduled for this week to come and remove that bathhouse structure. And the owner does not believe that we will need 120 days to remedy these items. So we absolutely would be open and supportive of a continuance, but would like to shorten the time period to 30 days or 60 days, because we believe we can meet the compliance issues within that time period.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schwartz, I'm going to go back to you now. And previously, what this commission has done on cases like this is we have continued it for staff's recommended time frame. In this case, it is 120 days, with the understanding to the applicant that, hey, if you get all of these, everything done prior to that, you can certainly come back to the commission prior to the 120 days. But we're just giving, extending an extra time period there. Am I correct with that, Mr. Schwartz?
Madam Chair, my understanding is that you are correct. They could do that. So, if they're ready beforehand, then we could put them on a closer agenda.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the applicant now and ask if you understood my question and the staff's response, which is, if we have a motion for continuance and a second and approval for 120 days, if all of the deficiencies are remedied within, if they're done in 30 days, you can go to staff. I'm sure that there's probably going to be an inspection to confirm that all of these deficiencies have been corrected. And then you can come back onto the agenda prior to 120 days. Is that sufficient to you?
Yes.
Okay, so then are you asking, I just want to be sure then, that are you also requesting that to continue this case this evening for 120 days with the understanding that if you're done sooner, you can come back?
Yes.
Okay, so at this time, I feel just to move this forward, because the applicant has requested a motion or has requested a continuance for 120 days. Therefore, we're not going to be discussing it this evening if we have a motion in a second. So with that, do any of the commissioners see any reason why we should not immediately move forward with a motion to continue? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So with that, I will accept a motion to continue this case for 120 days, please, in a second.
Okay, I will make that motion. I move to continue case number CUP 22-049 for a period of 120 days from this date.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ruggles. I would like to ask Mr. Schwartz at this time. We have previously been advised by legal that we have to continue a case to a date certain. Can you please flip through your calendar real quick and give me what that date certain would be, please?
And I can add that to my motions. So
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'll take a look at that for you. Thanks. Because this is not the typically scheduled time for a hearing, I guess it wouldn't be exactly 120 days. So. And I'll go ahead and ask Mr. McNeely, I don't know if you're also looking at this. Would that be more than 120 days, but the closest hearing to that date would be February 22nd, 2023, is that right?
Madam Chair, this is Jess McNeely with Community Development Staff. Yes, that would be the fourth Wednesday in February. So I think that would be the closest to 120 days.
okay, I can amend the motion to continue this case until the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing on the 22nd of February, 2023.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Ruggles and a second by Commissioner Williams to continue CUP 22-049 to February 22nd, 2023. All in favor, please say aye. Commissioner Ruggles,
Aye.
Vice Chair Burton,
Aye.
Commissioner Clifford,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Best.
Aye.
This is Chair Ontiveros, and I also vote aye. CUP 22049 has been continued to February 22nd, 2023. The final item on the agenda this evening is call to public for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address this commission for items not on the agenda? See, okay. Seeing none. They can't be related to, okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead. My clock shows 6:04 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned.
Oh, Chair Ontiveros,
Yes,
can we readdress the agenda?
yes, please do, please do.
Just going back to our first, our first item on our agenda was for continuing the approval of minutes. And I was thinking that whoever gets appointed to the commission, it will not have been a participant in that agenda, in that hearing. So they also will not be able to give a yay or a nay. So we're still only with 5 commissioners to approve those minutes. So we seem to be at a indefinite standstill. So should we be asking legal how to actually proceed with that?
Yes, Tiana, we should be asking legal how to proceed with that. Legal, can you give us some advice, direction?
Yes, Chair Ontiveros. This is Paul Garnes from the County Attorney's Office. I have spoken with both Jess McNeely as well as Aaron Lumpkin, who is now present. And if Aaron has anything to chime in, because I think Commissioner Burton's point about the new commissioner not being at that meeting either does present an issue. Mr. Lumpkin, do you have any thoughts on this if you're available?
Yeah, so I was thinking, I hadn't thought about that point. It's a good one. It puts us at a position where it would be indefinitely continued until, I don't know, some unknown conditions met. So my thought is, from a common sense perspective, which usually sometimes, sorry, my the junior member of my law firm, my daughter is in the office with me right now. I would think from a commonplace perspective, it would make sense that, okay, then maybe just a quorum of the members that were present and did not recuse themselves could be required then to vote on approving the minutes. But my advice right now is to continue the vote on approving the minutes until our next session, just so that Paul and I can look at the legal ramifications of this and kind of give a definitive legal answer and just hold the vote off until that point.
Okay, no, I think that's a good idea because we continued them indefinitely. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to direct staff to be in communication with legal, and you coordinate when to get this back onto our agenda so we can approve it, because it seems like we're at an impasse, but these minutes also have to be approved. So you know what, Mr. Lumpkin, maybe you could consult with the junior member of your law firm. She also might have some great ideas. So Commissioner Clifford, your hand is raised.
Yeah, while we were going through this, I looked up in Robert's Rules of Order on voting. And as long as we have 2/3 of the commissioners, even the new commissioner can abstain because he wasn't here, and that should give us the quorum to approve the minutes. So if legal could look in Robert's Rules of Order under voting, and I can't remember exactly where it was. It's been a lot of years since I was a parliamentarian and had to use it. So cobwebs are kind of clouding it.
Yeah, we'll take a look into that and see how the bylaws intersect with it. But
yeah, we'll take a deeper dive, like Commissioner Clifford said, and I concur with my colleague, Mr. Lumpkin.
Okay, that sounds good. And Vice Chair Burton, thank you so much for bringing that up because I had not thought of it either. So thank you for getting ahead of it. Appreciate it very much. And I will just let everybody know that I was not the $2 billion winner of the Powerball that we got yesterday. So you guys are going to continue to see me. And I think with that, I've already adjourned the meeting, so I'm going to say good night and happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And we will meet again on November 30th. Good night, you guys.
Good night. Thanks, Sammy.
Good night, everyone.
Hey,
Night,
Jess.
everyone.
Hey, Jess, can you hold a sec?
I can hold more than a sec for you, Commissioner Best.
Thank you, sir. I've got, first of all, is your email the same?
My email is the same. It's the most confusing email in the county because it's W. McNeely, even though I go by Jess, which is my middle name.
Okay. I've got a couple of things for questions for to be brought up at work sessions. I could email you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will do that.
Okay. I will watch for that.
Okay. Thank you, William. See ya.
Thanks, Commissioner Best.